The screaming stopped at 1437 Galactic Standard Time. Admiral Corvin Thrace watched from the bridge of the UES Defiant as the final human colony ship, the New Byzantium, disappeared in a cascade of quantum fire. 3 million souls gone. The Valkyrie dreadnoughts hung in space like metallic vultures, their crimson hulls gleaming with satisfaction. "Sir," whispered Communications Officer Lixa Vorn, her voice barely audible over the bridge's emergency lighting. That was the last of them. The colony fleets are gone." Thrace's weathered hands gripped the command rail until his knuckles turned white. In 6 months, the Valkyrie hegemony had systematically hunted down every human settlement beyond Earth. 47 worlds, 230 million people, all of them reduced to stellar debris and expanding gas clouds. The hegemony's strategy was elegant in its cruelty. They didn't want human territory or resources. They wanted extinction, complete, total, absolute. Incoming transmission from the Abi-Tau hegemony flagship, Vorn reported, her voice cracking. The view screen flickered to life, revealing the angular, chitinous face of War Primarch Keth Moore, his 4 yellow eyes burning with cold satisfaction. "Admiral Thrace, you have witnessed the fate of human expansion. Your species' time among the stars is finished." The colony ships were civilians, Thrace growled. "Non-combatants. Children." "Your mistake." Keth Moore clicked his mandibles in what passed for Valkyrie laughter. "Is believing that matters. Your species committed the unforgivable sin of existing in our galaxy. Today we correct that error." The transmission cut. Commander Nix Ashworth, Thrace's tactical officer, looked up from her console with haunted eyes. "Sir, our fleet. We've lost 70% of our ships. The Yorktown, Stalingrad, Mumbai's Pride. They're all gone. We have 43 vessels left against their 300. "Orders, Admiral?" asked Captain Dex Moorhaven from his position at the helm. Thrace stared at the tactical display showing their impossible odds. Earth's orbital defense platforms were rubble. The moon bases silent. Mars' colony had gone dark 12 hours ago. Humanity's interstellar navy, once the pride of 3 centuries of expansion, was now 43 battered ships against an armada. "Set course for Terra," he said quietly. "If we're going to die, we die defending home." As the Defiant came about, its engines straining against battle damage, a new contact appeared on the edge of the sensor grid. Single ship, configuration unknown, mass readings impossible. "Contact bears no IFF signature," reported Lieutenant Kess Valdrin from sensors. Admiral, it's massive. 10 times the displacement of a Valkyrie dreadnought, but the energy signature it's almost nothing, like it's barely there." On the view screen, space seemed to bend and ripple. Then, sliding out of what appeared to be folded reality itself, came a ship unlike anything in the galactic database. It was black. Not painted black, but black like the void between stars. Light didn't reflect from its hull. It seemed to drink. Photons, creating a ship-shaped absence in space. "My God," whispered Ashworth. "What is that?" The black ship moved with impossible grace, its massive bulk gliding through space as if gravity itself deferred to its passage. It took position between Earth's dying fleet and the Valkyrie armada, dwarfing both. A new voice crackled across all frequencies, human, but speaking with an accent lost to time. "Hegemony vessels, you have made an error. We suggest you correct it." Keth Moore's snarl echoed across the comm channels. "Identify yourself, unknown vessel. This is Valkyrie territory now." "Incorrect." The voice was calm, almost conversational. "This is human space. We are the UES Nemesis. And you have overstayed your welcome." The Valkyrie response was predictably violent. Keth Moore's flagship, the Bone Render, along with 50 dreadnoughts, opened fire on the black ship with enough energy to crack a moon. Plasma cannons, quantum torpedoes, and graviton lances struck the mysterious vessel's hull in a light show that outshone nearby stars. The weapons simply stopped. Not absorbed, not deflected. They ceased to exist upon contact with the black ship's surface. Impossible, breathed Captain Moorhaven. What kind of shielding? Not shielding, interrupted the voice from the Nemesis. Negation fields. Your weapons cannot harm what technically isn't there. Admiral Thrace felt something stir in his chest, the first ember of hope he'd felt in months. UES Nemesis, this is Admiral Thrace of the Terran Defense Fleet. I've never heard of your vessel. What's your status? A pause. Then, Admiral, this is Fleet Admiral Caius Rax of the Deep Strike Command. We've been away. How long has it been since the Andromeda incident? Thrace's blood turned to ice. The Andromeda incident was 3 centuries ago. The failed attempt to establish humanity's first extragalactic colony. The expedition had vanished without a trace, presumed lost to some cosmic disaster. 317 years, Thrace replied, his voice barely steady. Acceptable parameters, Rax responded. We were hoping to return sooner, but the research took longer than anticipated. We see you've made some new friends in our absence. On the tactical display, the Nemesis began to change. What had appeared to be a single massive vessel was actually unfolding. Sections that seemed solid revealed themselves as armored compartments. Weapons ports opened like blooming flowers of destruction. The ship's true size became apparent. It wasn't just larger than a dreadnought. It was larger than the entire Velkari fleet. Beginning tactical assessment, Rax announced. Hostile force, approximately 300 vessels, Velkari configuration. Technology level, adequate. Threat assessment, minimal. The war Primarch's roar of outrage echoed across every frequency. You dare mock the might of the hegemony? We are the conquerors of 800 worlds. We have ended 17 species. 17? Rax's voice carried a note of mild interest. We ended 17 species before breakfast on our worst day. But please continue your demonstration. We're curious about your capabilities. The Velkari fleet reorganized into their feared Talon formation, a tactical arrangement that had broken the backs of entire star nations. 300 ships moving in perfect coordination, weapons locked on the lone human vessel. What happened next would be discussed in military academies for the next 1,000 years. The Nemesis simply separated, not into component ships, but into individual weapon systems. Each one the size of a frigate, each one moving with inhuman precision. They flowed around the Velkari formation like water around stones, and when they struck with weapons that defied galactic understanding. Matter, dissolvers that unraveled atomic bonds, time dilators that aged enemy ships into scrap in seconds, quantum scramblers that convinced enemy vessels they had never existed in the first place. In 17 minutes, the Velkari armada of 300 ships was reduced to 23 fleeing survivors. Demonstration complete, Rax announced, as the Nemesis reformed itself with casual indifference to physics. War Primarch Kethmore, you will convey this message to your hegemony. Humanity is no longer on its knees. We have returned from the dark between galaxies, and we remember how to show our teeth. The surviving Velkari ships jumped to hyperspace, their terror broadcast on every frequency as they fled. In the sudden silence, Admiral Thrace found his voice. Fleet Admiral Rax, what happened to you out there? Where have you been? Learning. Admiral, learning what humans can become when they stop pretending to be civilized. The debriefing took place aboard the Nemesis, and Admiral Thrace quickly understood why the ship had seemed to drink light. The interior walls were lined with a material that didn't quite exist in normal space. It phased in and out of reality, creating corridors that stretched further than the ship's exterior dimensions should have allowed. Fleet Admiral Caius Rax, was waiting for them in what he called the strategy chamber. Thrace had expected to meet a man 3 centuries out of time, perhaps preserved by advanced medical technology. Instead, he found something that had once been human. Rax stood 7 feet tall, his skin an opalescent black that shifted like oil. His eyes were no longer quite human. They held depth that seemed infinite, as if looking into the void between stars. When he moved, space around him rippled slightly, as though reality itself was adjusting to accommodate his presence. "Please, sit." Rax gestured to chairs that materialized from the floor. "I know this is disconcerting. The process changes you." Commander Ashworth couldn't hide her shock. "Sir, what happened to the Andromeda expedition?" "We found them," Rax replied simply. "The others, the ones who came before." The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Captain Moorhaven leaned forward. "Before what?" "Before everything. Before the first stars formed. Before matter as we understand it existed." Rax moved to a viewport that showed not space, but something far more terrifying. The space between spaces, where geometric impossibilities danced in patterns that hurt to perceive. The Andromeda Galaxy was their tomb, Admiral. A mausoleum built from folded dimensions and collapsed timelines. "We went seeking new worlds for humanity, and instead we found the graves of gods." He turned back to them, and Thrace saw something in those infinite eyes that made him step back involuntarily. They had been waiting for someone to find. Them to learn from them, to carry on what they had begun. The process took 3 centuries of subjective time, though in the spaces between realities, time becomes negotiable. "What process?" Thrace asked, though part of him dreaded the answer. "Ascension, evolution. Call it what you will." Rax gestured, and the air filled with holographic displays showing impossible mathematics, equations that described how to rewrite the fundamental forces of existence. "We learned to step outside the conventional universe, to exist in the quantum foam that underlies reality, to become something more than flesh and blood." Lieutenant Valdron's voice was barely a whisper. "How many of you returned?" "All of us, none of us." The distinction becomes meaningless after the transformation. Rax smiled, and for a moment he looked almost human again. "We are still the men and women who left Earth 3 centuries ago. We are also something entirely new. The others showed us how to be both." Through the impossible viewport, more shapes were becoming visible. Ships like the Nemesis, dozens of them, sliding between dimensions with the casual ease of fish swimming through water. "Admiral," Rax continued, "while we were learning to transcend physical law, the Velkari were building an empire. They've conquered most of this galactic arm, haven't they?" Thrace nodded grimly. 47 human colonies in 6 months. They would have taken Earth if you hadn't arrived." "Earth was never in danger," Rax said with quiet certainty. "We've been watching, waiting for the right moment to return. The Velkari simply provided an excellent opportunity to field test our new capabilities." "Field test?" Commander Ashworth's voice carried a note of outrage. "They killed 200 million people!" For the first time, something dangerous flickered in Rax's inhuman eyes. "Yes, they did. And for that, the hegemony will answer. But not just them, Admiral. Every species that participated in or supported the systematic extermination of human colonies will face judgment." He gestured again, and the holographic displays shifted to show star charts. Red dots marked Velkari territory, but other colors showed the domains of their allies, the Thek Confederation, the Orbital Syndicate, the Hive Collective. The galactic community watched our species face extinction and did nothing. Some even celebrated. They will learn why that was unwise. The ship shuddered slightly, not from any external force, but from the reality distortions created by its very existence. Through the walls, Thrace could hear something that might have been singing, voices that weren't quite human anymore, harmonizing in frequencies that conventional physics couldn't explain. "What have you become?" he asked quietly. Rax looked at him with those infinite eyes, and when he smiled, the expression held both warmth and something utterly alien. "We have become what humanity needed to be. The question, Admiral, is whether you're ready to join us." The Velkari High Command expected panic. They expected desperate diplomatic overtures. They expected humanity to beg for mercy. They did not expect the black ships to appear simultaneously above 36 worlds. War Primarch. Keth Moore stood in the emergency session of the Hegemony Council, his 4 eyes burning with barely contained fury as reports flooded in from across Velkari space. Keth Prime reports all orbital defense platforms have simply vanished, reported General Vex Noth. Not destroyed, vanished, as if they never existed. The mining stations at Kelthar are gone, added Admiral Morkex. 17 billion tons of processed metals, gone without a trace. Fleet Commander Yethal's mandibles clicked nervously. "My lord, the human ships. They're not attacking our populations. They're taking our infrastructure, our weapons, our fleet bases. Everything we need to wage war is simply ceasing to exist." Kethmore slammed his armored fist against the council table. "How is this possible? No species has technology this advanced." "Because," came a familiar voice from the chamber's communication. "Array, you have never faced a species that learned from the others." Fleet Admiral Rax's image materialized in the center of the chamber, not holographically, but as if he were actually standing there, which should have been impossible, given that the council chambers were on a fortress world deep in hegemony. Space. "Impossible," Kethmore snarled. "This facility is shielded against all known forms of transmission." "Yes, but we're not transmitting." Rax smiled that unnervingly human yet not smile. "I'm simply choosing to be here. Space is negotiable. When you understand its true nature." The War Primarch drew his ceremonial blade, a weapon that could cut through starship armor. He lunged at the human's image and passed through empty air. "A demonstration," Rax said calmly. "We exist between dimensions now, War Primarch. Your weapons cannot touch us because we are not entirely here. But we can touch you." He gestured. Casually, and Kethmore's blade began to dissolve, its molecular bonds simply ceasing to function. "You demanded the extinction of humanity," Rax continued as the Velkari leaders cowered. "You hunted our children. You celebrated our supposed weakness. Now you will learn what human weakness truly looks like when it evolves into something else." Admiral Morkex's voice was a whisper of terror. "What do you want?" "Justice, recompense, and most importantly, education." The chamber filled with images of the destroyed human colonies. "Every species that supported or ignored our genocide will provide reparations. Every military officer who participated will face trial. Every politician who voted for our extinction will explain their reasoning to the survivors." General Vex Noth tried to rally some defiance. "The Galactic Council will never accept." "The Galactic Council," Rax interrupted, "is currently receiving similar visits from my colleagues, as are the Thek Confederation, the Orbital Syndicate, and 17 other species that thought humanity's death would benefit their expansion plans." New images filled the chamber. Black ships materializing above capital worlds across the galaxy. Not attacking, not demanding surrender, simply being there. Their presence alone was causing system-wide communications failures as their reality-distorting hulls interfered with conventional physics. "We are not conquerors," Rax continued. "We have no interest in ruling you, but neither will we allow what was done to humanity to be forgotten or forgiven." War Primarch Kethmore's rage finally overcame his fear. "You speak of justice? You are abominations, monsters. We will rally every species in the galaxy against you. You are welcome to try." Rax's expression didn't change. However, I should mention that we've already disabled every weapon of mass destruction in your territory. Your planet crackers, stellar bombs, and quantum cascade devices no longer exist. We've also taken the liberty of removing the drives from your remaining ships. You are now limited to sublight travel until further notice. The Velkari leaders stared at their tactical displays in growing horror. Thousands of ships across their empire were reporting total engine failure. Not damage. Their faster-than-light drives had simply vanished from their vessels as if they had never been installed. "How?" whispered Fleet Commander Ythal. "We convinced reality that those components were never manufactured," Rax explained patiently. "It's a simple matter when you understand that causality is more flexible than most species assume," he began, to fade, becoming translucent as he prepared to return to whatever impossible space the human ships inhabited. "We will return in 30 standard days for your answer," he said. "You can choose cooperation and gradual reintegration into galactic society under human oversight, or you can choose resistance, in which case we will begin systematically editing your species out of existence. Not through violence. We're beyond such crude methods now. We'll simply convince the universe that the Velkari were never an intelligent species to begin with." The transmission ended, leaving the hegemony leadership alone with their terror and the growing realization that they had awakened something far beyond their understanding. Above their world, the black ship waited with the patience of something that existed outside normal time. And across the galaxy, humanity's transformed children began the process of reshaping civilization according to their own impossible rules. 6 months after the black ships appeared, the Galactic Council convened for what many believed would be their final session. The great amphitheater on Neutral Sanctum Station buzzed with nervous energy as representatives from 300 species gathered to address what the media had dubbed the human question. Chancellor Vorth of the Altarian Republic called the session to order with trembling appendages. "Fellow beings, we face an unprecedented situation. The humans have evolved. Their demands for what they term restorative justice have fundamentally altered the balance of power in our galaxy. In the 6 months since the Velkari defeat, the transformed humans had systematically dismantled the military capabilities of 47 species. Weapons factories vanished overnight. Fleet bases found their ships missing key components that had somehow never been installed. Entire star systems lost their ability to manufacture advanced technology. Yet no one had been killed. No worlds had been invaded. The humans simply removed the ability to wage interstellar war from anyone who had supported or ignored the genocide attempts. Ambassador Krelthax of the Draconian Empire leaned forward. "The economic disruption alone has been catastrophic. Trade routes that relied on military escorts have collapsed. The Velkari have reverted to a pre-spaceflight civilization, practically overnight." "And yet," interrupted Ambassador Lythara of the Ethereal Collective, her crystalline form shimmering with anxiety, "civilian infrastructure remains untouched. Medical facilities, educational institutions, food production, all functioning normally. They're not trying to destroy us. They're domesticating us." A new voice echoed through the chamber, speaking from everywhere and nowhere at once. An interesting choice of words. Fleet Admiral Rax materialized on the central platform, but this time he wasn't alone. 3 other figures stood with him, beings that had once been human but now existed as something between matter and energy. Their forms shifted slightly, as if the amphitheater's atmosphere wasn't quite capable of containing their full presence. "I am Admiral Kix Valdrain," announced one, her voice carrying harmonics that seemed to resonate with the station's hull. "I represent the diplomatic corps of what you might call the new humanity." The second figure, tall and wreathed in shadows that moved independently of any light source, spoke next. I am Admiral Zeph Corvanis of the Enforcement Division. We ensure compliance with the new galactic regulations." The third remained silent, but space around him bent visibly, creating a localized gravitational anomaly that made several council members step back involuntarily. Chancellor Vorth's voice cracked as he spoke. What do you want from us?" "Peace," Valdrain replied simply. "For the first time in galactic history, we want actual peace. No more wars of expansion, no more genocidal campaigns, no more species wiped out for resources or territory." "Impossible," snarled Ambassador Kethvor, son of the disgraced War Primarch. "Conflict is the nature of intelligent life. Competition for resources drives evolution, drives progress." Corvanis turned his attention to the young Velkari, and where his gaze fell, frost began forming on the amphitheater walls. "Your species thought competition meant extinction. You were wrong. Now you'll learn cooperation, or you'll learn irrelevance." Ambassador, Hex Nera of the Trade Federation raised a shaking tendril. "What you're proposing would require complete restructuring of galactic civilization. The economic implications alone are irrelevant," Rax interrupted. "We've run the calculations across 17,000 probability matrices. Your current economic model results in the extinction of 43 species within 5 centuries, followed by total galactic ecosystem collapse within 800 years. This is unacceptable." Valdrain gestured, and the amphitheater filled, with holographic projections showing the mathematical models. Trade routes, resource allocation, population dynamics, all reduced to quantum equations that most species couldn't even comprehend. "We're offering an alternative," she continued. "Guided evolution, shared resources, collaborative exploration instead of competitive expansion. The technology we've developed makes resource scarcity obsolete. We can literally convince matter to arrange itself into whatever forms are needed." "And if we refuse?" asked Chancellor Vorth, though his tone suggested he already knew the answer. The silent third figure finally spoke, and when he did, his words seemed to come from inside each listener's mind rather than their ears. "Refusal is not extinction. Refusal is irrelevance. Those who cannot adapt to post-scarcity civilization will find themselves edited down to a manageable scale. You cannot simply remake galactic civilization to your specifications," protested Ambassador Krell-Thax. "There are laws, treaties, precedents." "There were," Corvanis agreed. "Past tense. We've reviewed your laws and found them inadequate. Genocide was perfectly legal under the old treaties. Planetary sterilization was an accepted military tactic. Species enslavement was regulated but permitted." "We offer something better," Valdrain said, her form brightening slightly. "A civilization where intelligence is valued over military might, where problems are solved through cooperation rather than conquest, where no child of any species needs to fear extinction simply for existing." The amphitheater fell silent except for the subtle humming of the new human's reality-distorting presence. Finally, Ambassador Lithera spoke. "And if we agree to this transformation, what happens to our sovereignty, our cultures, our independence?" Rax smiled, and for a moment, he looked almost like the human admiral he had once been. "You keep them all. We have no interest in ruling you. Ruling is for those who still exist entirely within conventional space-time. We exist beyond such limitations. We simply want to ensure that civilization continues to exist." "This is madness," whispered Kethvor. "You're talking about rewriting the fundamental nature of galactic society." "Yes," agreed all 4 new humans simultaneously, their voices harmonizing in ways that made the station's hull sing. "We are." 1 year after the Galactic Council's reluctant acceptance of the new compact, the changes were becoming visible across known space. Former war fleets had been converted into exploration vessels. mining operations that once stripped worlds. Bear now worked with rehabilitation teams to restore damaged ecosystems. The great slave markets of the Outer Rim had become cultural exchange centers. But perhaps nowhere were the changes more dramatic than on the former fortress world of Valkyrie Prime. Admiral Thrace walked through what had once been the most heavily fortified military installation in the galaxy, now transformed into something unprecedented. A multi-species university dedicated to studying what the new humans called collaborative evolution. His guide was Kethnaya, daughter of the former war Primarch, her chitinous features marked by the kind of thoughtful intelligence that had been discouraged in the old hegemony. The transformation began 6 months ago, she explained as they passed laboratories where Valkyrie researchers worked alongside human scientists and representatives from a dozen other species. The new humans didn't simply remove our weapons. They offered us something to replace them with. They paused at an observation window overlooking a vast chamber where impossible geometries played out in three-dimensional space. Students of various species were learning to perceive and manipulate the quantum foundations of reality itself. They call it applied dimensional engineering, Kethnaya continued. The ability to convince reality to behave differently. It's how they do everything, from creating matter from nothing to existing in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Through the quantum foam, Thrace could see human instructors, not the transcended new humans, but baseline humans who were learning alongside the other species. The transformation wasn't limited to the mysterious Deep Strike fleet that had returned from Andromeda. Ordinary humans were being invited to evolve as well, though at a more gradual pace. The process is voluntary, explained Dr. Kess Valdrin, who had requested transfer from Thrace's fleet to study the new sciences. She approached them with eyes that held depths they hadn't possessed a year ago. The new humans won't force evolution on anyone, but they make the opportunity available to those who want to transcend biological limitations. And you chose to undergo the transformation? Thrace asked, noting how space seemed to bend slightly around his former officer. Partially, she smiled. I'm about halfway through the process, still mostly human but able to perceive quantum fluctuations and manipulate localized spacetime. In another year, I might choose to go further, or I might remain at this level. The choice is always ours. They moved deeper into the facility, past chambers where former Valkyrie warriors were learning to grow matter directly from quantum vacuum, where ethereal collective members were teaching others to exist as pure consciousness, where Trade Federation economists were developing post-scarcity distribution models. The most remarkable thing, Kethnaya said softly, is that we're not losing our cultural identities. If anything, the absence of survival pressure is allowing us to explore what our species can truly become when not focused on conflict. An alert chime echoed through the facility, and Admiral Valdrain materialized in the corridor before them. Her transformation had progressed further since the council meeting. She now existed as a being of controlled energy held in roughly human shape. Admiral Thrace, she greeted him with genuine warmth. Perfect timing. We're about to demonstrate the next phase of the Collaborative Evolution Project. She led them to a vast central chamber where representatives from over 100 species had gathered. At the chamber's heart, a device that defied geometric logic hummed with restrained power. The consciousness bridge, Valdrain explained. A technology that allows direct mind-to-mind communication between any intelligent beings, regardless of their biological or energy-based nature. No more misunderstandings caused by translation errors. No more fear of the unknown. Fleet Admiral. Rax appeared beside her, his form more stable now, as if he were learning to exist comfortably in normal space again. Today, we connect the first 100 worlds to the bridge network. Not to control or monitor. The connection is entirely voluntary and can be severed at any time. But for those who choose to participate, It represents the first step toward a truly unified galactic consciousness. The implications, Thrace began, then stopped as the magnitude of what they were proposing struck him. Are staggering, Rax agreed. Species that have warred for millennia will be able to understand each other's perspectives directly. Artists from different worlds will be able to share their visions without the barriers of biology. Scientists will be able to collaborate on a level never before possible. Around the chamber, beings began stepping forward to volunteer for the first linking. Velkari researchers stood beside human explorers, ethereal scholars next to draconian philosophers, Trade Federation economists alongside former slaves from the Outer Rim. This is what we found in the space between galaxies, Valdrain said quietly. Not just transcendence of physical law, but transcendence of the barriers between minds. The others had achieved this before the first stars formed. They showed us that intelligence, not matter, is the fundamental building block of reality. The device activated, and suddenly the chamber filled with something impossible to describe, the direct sharing of consciousness between beings who had never dreamed. Such intimacy was possible. Wonder, fear, curiosity, and hope flowed between minds that had been shaped by completely different evolutionary paths. And in that moment, Thrace understood what the new humans had truly brought back from their 3-century journey. Not just advanced technology or transcendent abilities, but the knowledge that intelligence itself could evolve beyond the limitations of individual consciousness. This is just the beginning, Rax said, his words carrying harmonics that spoke directly to the mind. The galaxy is taking its first steps toward becoming something greater than the sum of its parts. Through the quantum foam of shared consciousness, Thrace felt the touch of minds from across the galaxy, all of them learning, growing, evolving together towards something that had no name because it had never existed before. The age of competition was ending. The age of collaboration had begun. 5 years had passed since the consciousness bridge went online, and the galaxy had become something unrecognizable. Wars had not ended. They had become literally impossible, as the shared understanding between species made conflict pointless. Why fight for resources when matter itself could be convinced to arrange itself as needed? Why conquer when collaboration produced results that competition never could? Admiral Thrace stood on the observation deck of the UES Infinite, humanity's first ship built using new human technology. Around him, space itself seemed alive with activity, as thousands of vessels from hundreds of species worked together on the most ambitious project in galactic history, the construction of a gateway to the space between galaxies. Nervous? Asked Dr. Valdrin, who had completed her transformation the previous year. She existed now as a being of pure consciousness, wearing a body of structured energy, but her smile was still recognizably human. Terrified, Thrace admitted. We're about to open a door to where the others came from. Are we ready for what we might find? Fleet Admiral Rax materialized beside them, his form now so advanced that looking at him directly caused reality to shimmer. The question, Admiral, is whether they're ready for what we've become. Through the consciousness bridge, Thrace could feel the anticipation of billions of minds across the galaxy. The project had become a shared endeavor involving every spacefaring species, their combined knowledge and abilities focused on a single goal, making contact with the intelligence that had preceded them by eons. The gateway is ready, announced Admiral Corvanis from his position at the quantum manipulation controls. All systems show optimal integration between dimensional phases. The construct they had built defied every previous understanding of engineering. It wasn't so much a machine as a localized rewriting of physics itself, a sphere of controlled impossibility that would allow passage between the normal universe and the quantum foam that underlay all reality. Energy signatures are stabilizing, reported Captain Moorhaven, who had chosen to remain baseline human but served as a crucial link between the transformed and unchanged populations. Whatever's on the other side, it's responding to our presence. The gateway activated, and space tore open to reveal something that was not space at all. Through the aperture, they could see the realm between galaxies, not empty void, but a dimension where consciousness itself formed the landscape. Structures that existed as pure thought stretched across distances, measured in ideas rather than kilometers. And moving toward their gateway came something vast and ancient and unutterably alien. The contact was not physical. Beings of such advancement had long ago transcended the need for matter-based communication. Instead, it was a direct merging of consciousness that bypassed every barrier of species, biology, and individual identity. "Welcome," spoke the mind that touched theirs. "We have been waiting." Through the bridge, every intelligent being in the galaxy experienced the contact simultaneously. The other, for it was one of the original intelligence that had evolved before the first stars, shared its perspective with them. Billions of years of existence, the rise and fall of countless civilizations, the long wait for another species to achieve sufficient evolution to make meaningful contact. "You have done well," the other continued. "The experiment is successful." "Experiment?" Rax's voice carried confusion that rippled through the shared consciousness. Images flooded through the bridge, the seeding of the galaxy with conditions favorable to the evolution of intelligence, the careful guidance that ensured diverse species would develop along different paths, the calculated challenges that would eventually force them to evolve beyond competition. "We are the gardeners," the other explained. "Each galaxy is a garden where new forms of consciousness grow. Most fail. Intelligence destroys itself before achieving transcendence.